Alright, so here's a build that a lot of you guys have been kind of asking me for a while, and I was kind of busy and not really interested in making this because, like, well, I figured someone else would make it eventually because the concept's super simple. It's not like any rocket science here, and people have been asking me to make a lighter Cinewhoop, but one that is not as noisy. And I know that a lot of you guys are flying the 3-inch typical Cinewhoops like the Squirt or something that looks like the Squirt, like the Bumblebee, or there's a whole bunch of variations of that type of that Cinewhoop that's pretty heavy, big motors, very loud. I mean, it sounds like a lawnmower or a jet engine or something. And also the sound profile is very annoying as well. And if you're trying to fly something like that indoors, it can be quite disturbing. It might be very distracting. Maybe you want to fly in an indoor space or some space that isn't going to attract as much attention. Then something like this here, this very light Cinewhoop, is going to be something you're going to want to be, possibly looking into building or figuring that at some point in a very near future, a company like Happy Model or Beta FP is probably going to see this video and put out a copy of something similar to this pretty soon, because this, I think is going to fill a sort of a niche in the market that isn't really being met right now, and that is a indoor Cinewhoop that can be flown with a naked GoPro, as you can see here, naked GoPro, and capture that nice cinematic real steady go footage, but not making a lot of noise. And so, for those of you guys that are interested in that, continue watching this video. Now, for those of you guys that are like durability weenies, and if you crash a lot, or if you think that everything that is in FPV needs to be able to fly into a brick wall and survive, then you should stop watching this video immediately, because you'll be very unhappy, because this is a extremely minimalistic build, extremely light, fragile, probably isn't going to survive hard crashes. But if you're just flying this indoors around people, for example, you don't want to be in creating a lot of noise, then continue watching. So this here is basically an inverted toothpick with prop guards. So these prop guards are pretty cheap right now. I think they're $5 for 4 of these on Banggood. I'll link those in the description. They're very light, about 3.5 grams each, so it doesn't add a lot of weight here. And I basically took a toothpick frame, inverted it, and obviously had to modify it somewhat here, add some parts, and basically what you get here is a 65-gram Cinewhoop here without the naked GoPro. So let me just get the weight out of the way here and explain how this is put together. Alright, so this is just the drone by itself. No battery, no camera, or no GoPro. And as you can see here, we're 64.9 grams, so about 65 grams. And the way this is set up here, I have a 1303 AMAX motors. These are the 7500 kV. So I am flying this with a 2S 450. I can get about a 4 to 4.5 minute flight on this 2S with the GoPro. If you want to go for a 3S setup here, you can go for the 1303 5000 kV motors that I reviewed before previously. I'll show you that in a second here. I'll link that video in the description. Actually, you can watch that video if you want. That'll give you a 3S setup, and then you can put a 3S 450 instead. Obviously, the overall weight's going to go up a little bit. As the weight goes up, the noise goes up. So that's the whole point of this concept here, is to get this as light as possible, to keep the weight as little as possible and the noise as little as possible. So anyway, so with the battery for 2S 450, it's coming at 93.1, and who cares about that, because we want to fly it with the naked GoPro here. This is the Hero 6 with the Beta FPV 1 case, and I've got the Camera Butter ND filter adapter on there that I made, and all together, this is the all-up flying weight here, 124.19 grams, so about 124.2 grams. Yeah, so it's extremely light, and it doesn't really make a lot of noise compared to a traditional 3-inch Cinewhoop. That the all-up weight of that, depending if it's like 4S or 6S, we're talking like 500, 600 grams sometimes with a full-size GoPro. Like Hero 8, Hero 9. It's like almost 4.5 to 5 times heavier than this, and it's going to make a lot more noise than this. So just for comparison, here's the toothpick that I built from that Spartan Foos, the Foos Spartan, that converted to 3-inch with the baby tooth frame, and these are the 1303 5000 kV motors. So if you want to go to a 3S setup, this is the motor you'd use instead. But just for comparison, this is how much this toothpick weighs. It's 56 grams. So obviously don't have a canopy on the Cinewhoop, so there's a little bit of trade-off in weight. But basically, it's about a 9-gram difference between this toothpick and the 65-gram Cinewhoop here with no canopy. I do have different parts, of course, because I have to carry the naked GoPro, and that's what I created here. This little piece right here for the naked GoPro, and I just have a Runcam Nano 3 here. This is the V1 Nano 3, and I have some VHP on the back of the camera that's holding it to the front of this little camera holder for the GoPro, and that runs back, the wires run underneath here and onto the flight controllers underneath. I'll show you that here in a second. But then I have this other part here that connects to where the motors are connected to, and this actually provides the vibration dampening, and the jello basically prevents it from getting a lot of jello. Works pretty well. I mean, you do want some movement in here, but you don't want too much. Otherwise, if it's too stiff, it's going to transmit the vibrations from the motors to the camera. And I found that this thickness is pretty good. It's a 100% infill. This is a Sane Smart TPU, and I'll upload this to Thingiverse, I think, at some point. I'm still kind of working out the details on these parts, so I'll put those links in the description later, so you might want to check back later once I sort of refine it. I'm not really 100% happy about the parts yet, so it might need a little bit of more work. I may want to try and reduce the weight a little bit more, although I'm pretty happy with the weight right now. I mean, if you guys can think of ways to reduce the weight even further than this and get it lighter, do let me know in the comments below, because I have made this as super minimalistic as possible. So the frame that you're seeing here is a 3-inch, sort of a baby tooth type of frame, but it only has 3 motor mounts, and then one here in the back is missing. So this here is a design by Dave C. FPV. I don't remember exactly what this is called. I'll link this Thingiverse file down in the description. Had this also cut by CNC Madness. So this is a 2mm thick, sort of whatever this frame is called. I call it a baby tooth frame. It's a baby tooth style frame, but only has the 3 motor mounts, as you can see here, and that 4th one's missing. And that's because for this design, you're going to want to have the all-in-one flight controllers with the USB port like that, where you can access it. Now, you can have the ones with the USB port on the side like this here, and have this is a traditional baby tooth frame with 4 mount points. But, you know, when you do it like this and this frame's inverted, as you can see, getting to that USB port is going to be kind of a hassle. You can do it, of course, and it's not impossible, but it's probably going to be somewhere like under here, or you have to access it over here under the arm. So that's why I went with this design. Now, you can get, you can obviously get a baby tooth frame, and you can just cut off the, or Dremel this off, you know, if you have a Dremel, and cut off that last mount point for the flight controller, and you basically have the same sort of effect where this mount point is missing, and then you use have the USB port pointing up. But of course, the simplest is just to get this design and have CNC Madness cut it for you and have them ship it to you. Alternative is you can buy a baby tooth frame like this and then cut off the 4th mount point, or you can get the clone. I think there's clones of this as well on Banggood. I think it's called the A Pro 150 or something like that, and do the same thing. Just cut off that. I think that's like a $10 part from Banggood for those of you guys who are buying things internationally, and then the 4 prop guards are like, I think $5, so like the whole thing would be like $15 for basically for the frame parts, which is, you know, pretty reasonable in my opinion. Of course, you know, I'd recommend just getting this part here from CNC Madness. It doesn't really cost that much either. They're pretty cheap too. And of course, shipping, of course, that's always a thing with international shipping. It could be a problem for you. So I don't know. That really depends on where you live. But if you want to build it the same way I did, this is the frame you're going to need, and then you're going to need a flight controller here with the USB port pointing up, and this is the one that I reviewed a while back. And I said I was going to put it into something, and here it is, 6 months later. This is a SkyStars F4 all-in-one 15 amp board. So you can see it's a pretty generic board. It's a Maytech F411 target. That's an F411 chip. Beautiful OSD, 15 amp ESCs, nothing really special. But for this light build, you don't really need, you're not going to be doing any racing or anything like that with it. You don't need anything more than 15 amps. 10 amps would probably be fine as well if you want to go with something even, you know, like a crazy V board or something like that. But I went with this one because it has the big pads for the motor wires, which I have. It's going to be hard to see. I've soldered there. You can see right there how I soldered the motor wires on. And the pads are pretty big for the motor wires. That's why I went with this board. And it had the vertical USB port. So that worked out pretty well. And then, you know, you can see the wiring here for the camera and the video transmitter. And I have the video transmitter here. This is the eSheen Nano V2 video transmitter. So it goes up to 400 milliwatts. And I just have like I said, this is super minimalistic, not really good for crashes. Just a little piece of VHB here. And then that's holding the video transmitter on the arm. And I have a piece of dental floss. Just tie it off there to hold it on to the arm. I mean, obviously this whole thing's super light, so it doesn't have a lot of mass. So even if you do crash it, it's probably not going to take too much damage. I've already crashed this, and these little prop guards are fine. I thought this I thought for sure these little prop guards would break in any type of crash, but they seem okay. You know, if you're just doing like small crashes, it should be okay. And then the receiver here is it's like a crossover receiver they've had for a while. Again, there's a little bit of VHP on the arm. Just sort of stick it on there, and I tied it up with a piece of dental floss. Again, the whole idea is keep this super minimal and lightweight. And then I'm just using a rubber band here for holding the battery, and I'm just putting the battery sideways like this. And that goes on there. I have a little connector here for my GoPro for the power, and then the GoPro just goes in here. So I run this cable through the bottom of this hole, and just stick it on in there, and then the power cord pops out the bottom like that, and then I can just plug it in over there. But this is what it looks like with the GoPro on there, and you can see it. You know, if you shake it, it moves around because it's flexible. This whole point is to prevent it from getting vibrations from the motor, but it's not flexible enough where it's shaking while you're flying, so you get jealous. So again, it's all for the real steady go to keep the vibrations out of the gyro, and that's what it looks like. I mean, it's super minimalistic. Not a whole lot to this build. Just have the one flight controller down there. You have to manage your wire lengths and stuff to make sure they don't get into the props. The one thing that is complicated about this build is how you mount the motors and the prop guards. So I have the prop guards on top of the frame here so I can have space. So I need space between the bottom of the motor here and the prop guard so that the prop aligns with the edge of the prop guard here. So you don't want it too high, otherwise it'll hit this part of the prop guard here, and you don't want it too low. And so what I had to do is, as you can see, I've added these washers here. This is a long screw that goes through the prop guard, the carbon plate. There's two 1mm washers there, so that's 2 millimeters of spacers. You got the motor, and then you have the prop on here. So this particular motor has a 2mm shaft, so I got the jump band props with a 2mm shaft hole, and I didn't push them all the way up because there's a little bit of a gap there, so that the props would line up with the edge of the prop guard. I didn't want them a little bit higher, just in case the prop would bend a little bit and you might hit the top of this prop guard right there. Plus I want them for protection, so in case you hit somebody, this part here is there's no chance that the prop's going to be either below or above that point and potentially accidentally nick someone. So you can see if the prop does bend a little bit, it's going to come up like that. But You can say I want it lined up with the prop guard here, but not too low where it, when you're landing, the prop isn't able to freely spin. So right now it's still able to freely spin. So you got to kind of play with it and how you mount it and stuff to get that right and put the prop exactly where you want it, so you don't have any problems with landing and takeoff. Anyway, so I think that's going to be it for this video. And let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you think that this is going to get copied pretty soon. I have a feeling that it probably won't take them too long, maybe maybe a month before you see something like this on Beta FPV or Diatone or Happy Model, something like that. Because I'm pretty sure this prop guard part, it's made by a company called HSKRC. I'm pretty sure that they're like a factory that makes all kinds of parts for like all these other companies. So this, and then plus the frame, is super simple. The idea is really super simple. So it's really getting the camera mount right and getting the weight right. So it's really, really low to get sort of this, I call this like an indoor Cinewhoop, because indoor spaces are going to be, echoing that noise a little bit more. And it's going to be quiet. It's going to feel safer. You can fly it around people, and especially people that maybe might be annoyed by loud sounds. Then this is going to be a little bit more appealing to those type of people. Especially if you're one of those guys that don't like loud cinemas, but you still want to get into this naked GoPro Cinewhoop game, but you don't want to fly around something that sounds like a lawnmower. Then yeah, this is definitely one you want to check out. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.